evening, folks, and welcome to another session of the Old Wise Asylum. Not to complain, but to notice of anything that's gone on this week, so we're not even going to discuss it. But I did find early in the week some what appears to be hidden law or statutes that governments are all signed up to, and you may not be aware of it because, of course, if they're different slightly than the actual acts in your own country, then that's the data that the system is operating to, and not necessarily what is we think they are, because of course it's in their own government act. So this is not found on the government website so much, and it's an interesting bit of history as to how it started, who started it and why, but it's pulling together this one world system, just pulling everybody in sync. So I thought we'd have a little look at that. Now, I haven't actually got a chance to look at this week, so we'll do it raw. So I'm watching it, going to look through it for the first time as well as you guys, and we'll just see where it leads us. But more to the point, it's important that you actually are aware of this law, because I wasn't aware that they were tied into this. And interestingly, it's governing all things that we know they're about to kick off, and I've been doing for quite a while, which is, you want your kids, it's your family, it's how they can basically carve you up to earn them a return, right down to, you know, trafficking in your face, as we've said, through social services, referrals from schools and such like. So there's money to be made, and they're certainly ensuring that this is across the board. Now, it's an EU gig, but more specifically, it's a Dutch gig. So, 1700s. So it's Prussians. It's part of everything that moved here with the Hanoverians, the Admiralty of the East India Companies, and the financial system of the same moved into the inner city of London. Now, also what we've realised recently is the Temple Bar have been given and are holding the ecclesiastical jurisdiction here on these isles. Now, that said, you would then expect that it continues in America, in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and anywhere else that's been affected by the Prussian / British Empire. So, interesting stuff is the best I can say, but it needs to be known, because if these guys are sort of blocking in our efforts as we all move within that game in equity, if you are in equity, etc., then if they're operating to slight changes that come in these other laws, we need to know. We need to know, because you need to incorporate it in your communications at all points. So, without further ado, let's have a little look. So, who's on? Paul says, good evening to you, Paul. PY says, evening all, good evening, Paul. Mew says, good evening, Sean, hello, one and all. Did you watch the rest of the videos from Bob? And do you think that he's worth interviewing? The new tunes are fantastic, put them up on your channel. Well, thank you, Mew. Well, interestingly, I did watch them, but not until later in the week. Again, exceptionally interesting. And definitely point you towards them and find them on that same channel that I put up under there, because they are very interesting. The second one especially is very, very interesting, but I would still say the third was by far the most important of the three interviews, but each equally well worth a look. Now, do I think it'd be worth it? Well, funny enough, it has actually connections been made sort of via a third party, and he would be happy to do a chinwag with All Life in the Mix. So I'm thinking that's got to be something to look to do as this autumn progresses. Now, I think the only reason I've not sort of done this before is because I thought Streamlabs allowed me to just pull, if I sent a link out, people could access my Streamlabs live, and I could play with both. We could both be up on screen. So I was quite excited about that, and I might have mentioned it a few months ago because that was when I first realised. When I've looked into it, I have to upgrade again. So I've paid the premium, and now I have to pay the ultra if I want to play that gig. So me's thinking I might have to achieve that first, because then we could do quite a lot of interviews with interesting people. Could we not? So yes, that is definitely on the cards. Bob has agreed he'd love to do one, so that's superb. I haven't contacted him yet, but I will do. I shall indeed. So that should be something to look forward to. I'd enjoy it anyway. I think it'd be a good one, that. We can pop about with what we know, because that guy knows a lot. You can tell, there's no doubt at all that the guy knows what he's talking about. So yeah, it's on the cards. And I'd like to call back Adam, but I've not seen Adam. I hadn't heard of him since those, since the bug script kicked off anyway. So I don't know whether he's still around, I don't know whether he watches or not, but I'd like to do another with Adam, post the biggest mind job operation we've seen for quite some time. So that'd be good as well. So definitely. Oh, is it you? Okay, I thought it were. Oh, right. See, I don't know. I don't even know whether I'm coming or going sometimes, mate. I don't know where I get my info from sometimes, or what I've seen, what I've read, and who I've talked to. And then I remember a week after, so there's a delay. I don't know what it is. It could be age. It can't be fluoride though, or anything like that. Untitled says, hello Sean, good evening to everyone, good evening to you. And June says, good evening all, with a thumbs up. Good evening, June. Cos says, that looks like a bit of dog shit. What's upset thee? What's upset the old Cos? Putting a bit of poo up there. Good evening. Okay. And me says, hello Sean and everybody. Good evening to you too. And Muse crying with laughter. That's jolly good. We like a bit of laughter, don't we? Because everything else out there is a bit shit. You were in Costa. I were in Costa. I'm always at Costa. It's, no, I'm not actually. Morning and evening just for a chill, I can relax. An hour before my day starts, think about what I'm going to do. And then an hour at the evening to look at what I've done and see what I'm going to do next. And that's pretty much the way it works. It's the chill more than anything, but I do like a good old latte, I have to say. So, right, so I've completely forgot. I've no memory whatsoever of our conversation there, you. Did you send me a message? Because if you sent me a message, you've got to remember these burner phones are absolutely shite in relation to easy use. They're terrible. But you do get used to them, and to be honest, I don't really care. But sometimes I'm struggling to hear people. Texting is a terrible adventure because shit. But it works. You can ring me up and I can text, and that's good enough for me. But anyway, yeah. Okay. So there we go on that one. Now I thought we'd also have a bit of a look at some etymologies, just so I can give you an idea of how I work when it comes to investigating something. You know. So if you're looking at an act and it's got specifically something in there that you want to use, then you would check the rest of the act to make sure that there's no other part of that act cancels the bit out that you want to use. If that's the case, you're good to go. You know, you can reference that act, you can reference that particular part. But sometimes you want to it's worth picking up that little part that you're going to use and look at its words. What are the words in that part? What is it saying? And sometimes it's well worth, especially if it's a legal term or a term that's not, out there everywhere unless you're getting into that stuff. It's always worth sticking it into etymology and just seeing what the hell are they on about with that, and then stick it into Webster's or Black's to see what Satan's Bible has to say about what it means to the legal imps. Because, of course, Black's is their Bible. So, again, that's good. It's always good practice to do that, so that if you're going to use a particular part of an act, i.e., you are going to remind the state agent or whomever that they are governed by this particular piece, Yeah, and as long as you see, that's another thing I've learned in this 10 months of pushing for this, really getting to grips with the jurisdictions, because they're separate and you can't mix it up. You can't mix it up because if you mix it up, they'll see it immediately. They know you are not capable of settling your estate. It's impossible. You can't do it. They know that beforehand. This is why you don't get anywhere. So anger usually comes, you get frustrated, but ultimately that frustration shouldn't be against them. Remember, they're upholding the rules that they have to abide by in order there's no damage to the estates held in trust by the king. Yeah, but as I've said, recently we've discovered that the ecclesiastical jurisdiction given by the Holy See to Henry VIII was lost further down the line and handed to the temple boy. Right? Ecclesiastical. This is why I would presume old Queenie had to bow and knock to pass the threshold from the temporal into the so-called ecclesiastical. So then when you look at Church of England, well, what does that mean? Everybody goes, well, it's the Church of England. Well, of, etymology of, legal, it means away from. Church away from England. So where is it? I know where it is. I know where it is. It's over there in the Middle East, that little place, that that fire starter. So it's the Church of or away from England. Are we getting that? And that jurisdiction is ecclesiastical, which we could say and afford to all Protestant nations, the Protestant side of the gig, or the coin, or the cross, even. Yeah? Private ledger, public ledger, on the cross yard. Well, anyway, so there you've got two separate jurisdictions, but of course both being run by the Holy See. Because of course the Temple Boy has its commission from the Holy See, not the Vatican. This is a thing we really have to start to understand. People see Rome, they see Vatican. Vatican is a church. It's a separate instrument, but controlled by the Holy See. Why? Because the Holy See, yes, it's a legal jurisdiction that the Pope can wield, but the Holy See is the grouping of families that have made sure, have put all the people on the papacy forever. So it's clever how they've done this. It's like they've split it, everything up. Financial, London. It was military, but the military admiralty is still there, so it's still being run there. But of course, its manifestation in physical will be at the United States. Unless there's a skulldugger skin, the naval command has actually shifted from the institute. But I'm not so sure, because I've not actually seen anything to suggest that, but it could be the case. And then you've got the Vatican, which is the church side. And here we've got this other ecclesiastical setup called the Protestant gig. But Church of England, church away from England, doesn't take much to realise it's got to be the Church of Israel. Hasn't it? It has to be. Which is why we're all heading in head first into this no-hide. Which brings us to what we were just talking about at the beginning about this other body of law. Because the UK government's tied into it in 13 parts. But it starts to just form that picture of this, why I've said before, all what was going on, pulling Trump up to the top of the pile, which of course is the bottom of the pit, is all based on this. We are saving children that are being trafficked. So you don't look at where it's really going on. That the corporate side of this merger with the state, which according to Mussolini means fascism is in place, is trotting along quite well. And nobody's looking at that because they're all following the trumpet and the happy charade going on in the background with Q. It's worrying. But this body of law is basically fixated on all things social, children, parents, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to have a little look at that. Excuse me while I just have a sweet. Because it's been a scorcher today and I'm a bit dry on the old mouth. Yeah, but watching moonrise and it's red. Is it red tonight? Well, it'll be coming up, but it's coming up to the side, so I can't see it. It comes just over Hamilton, and it's huge thing. I mean, it's full moon this time. It was huge. It were a big one. And me says I've uploaded clips from the other week because we're so important and gave you credit and link to YouTube. Oh, you don't mind? I don't mind. I've seen it. I saw it. No, I don't mind at all, my old channel. Just as long as you behave yourself. And always remember my pronouns. Fantastic and amazing. Don't be making me look anything less than that. And all's good. Baptist and Roman citizen. No. You see, ecclesiastical. That's where they take your soul that's lost at sea. So the body's dead on the equator, says QV. But they already control your soul, which is lost, isn't it? So baptism into either or any is your mother and father offering up your soul into the custody of the Holy See, ultimately, regardless of which denomination you get water thrown at you. You know what I'm saying? So, now all would be well, but now we've got Jesuits running, and I've had for a long, long time. Now they are this Church of Israel. But then the Holy See families are the ones that are just pushing in what it is they've always held dear, even though they've controlled Rome at least since its fall. But I would suggest a lot of the nonsense we saw, maybe like say between Caesar right up to its collapse, was the battle between the old Roman elites versus the Carthaginian elites, which is the Phoenicians. The Venetians. The Prussian Knights, all the knightly orders, you know, the Templars, etc., etc. But you can see it, Prussians. See it, that's the big mammoth, you know, Eric Prince, Circle. All these things are being operated by this Prussian knightly order global military industrial complex. That's what is going on. All our militaries are under it now. Nations are under occupation. You know, your financial systems are in administration. All your trusts are in the hands of the Bank of England or your respective central bank. And the Bank for International Settlements is ultimately dictating terms in relation to what happens with your estates. So where's the monarch in all this these days? It's like a bit odd, isn't it, really? But to say that the old Queenie there didn't uphold any of the rights to your estate for you might suggest that, you know, this foreign bunch of Johnny-come-latelys has had control for a very, very long time, and pushing our estates into the banks, the central banks, has been a big part of shift, often away from the monarch. So what does that mean exactly? I don't know. It needs further investigation, but there's something gone on, because the monarch is just a puppet system. It means it's meaningless, and has been for a very long time. Maybe Edward VII was perhaps the last monarch to wield the full power afforded to what we call Great Britain. Today the UK. But of course, UK is the corporate side of it. Great Britain is the occupation title, as we investigated many, many moons ago, to our satisfaction, that yes, indeed, we are all under occupation, and we've been that way for a hell of a long time. Who in the chat has mentioned and was using mentholated blue or whatever it's called? I might have known you pull it down to happy pills and hallucinogenics, mew. On my channel I've got Patrick Devine on about baptism. Oh, Patrick, the one that disappeared. Yeah, I know what you mean. Methylene blue was me, says me. On ball, full of energy. Well, you need to tell us what that is. We don't know what it is. It sounds a bit like Breaking Bad to me. That blue stuff. It's what's he called? I forgot what he called himself. What did he call himself? The old super chemist. Heisenberg. Does sound a bit that way, man. You're not a crackhead, are you, mate? Come on. You're not a crackhead. Look at you in there like a rabbit there, see you. And you mention hallucinogens and he's off. Right, let's have a little look at this. Oh, wait a minute, I've got the wrong one on. Excuse me. And there we go. Now, I hope you can see that's as pretty much as big as I can make it. Unless there's a... No, there's no... So this is HCCH. You know, some of you might have seen this before. But so we, Ministry of Justice, let's say, not we, they, Ministry of Justice, Post Point 911, 102 Petty France, London, SW1H 9AJ. That's an odd address, if I have to say. It says for information on the legislation documents, including requesting a postille, please go to. Oh, and there we go on the W. So it is linked in some way. But its IP is hcc.net/en/states HCCH members. Okay. For inquiries about requests under the HCC Service and Evidence Conventions, please contact UK Central Authority for Service or the UK Central Authority for Evidence. I've never even heard of them things. Let's have a look. What's that then? Central Authority and Practical Information. Conventions include protocols or principles. Convention 15th of November 1965 on the service abroad of judicial and extrajudicial documents in civil and commercial matters. Senior Master Royal Courts of Justice, Room E16, Royal Courts of Justice. Foreign process, email, general website, Ministry of Justice, forwarding authorities, Senior Master Royal Courts of Justice, Scottish Government Justice Directorate, Northern Ireland, the Master, Queen's Bench and Appeals, Personal Service on Individuals, that's Methods of Service, Personal Service on Individuals, and Postal Service on Registered Offices of Companies. If this fails, by first class post, that's England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland. Translation requirements pursuant to Article 53 of the Convention, blah, 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 blah. Costs related to execution of the request for service. Time for oppositions and declarations. Click here to read all the declarations made by the state under the Service Convention. So no opposition to Article 8.2. So there's some declarations. See how important that word is? Declaration. Solemn declaration covered by statute, which is why we do call it statutory declaration, but it isn't. It's a solemn declaration. That is its real title. Yeah, declarations. Start to realise how important they are and why they don't have you using that. You have more control over it because it's your declaration of the facts. So look, derogatory channels, bilateral, multilateral, blah blah blah. Competent authorities: Scotland, messengers at arms and sheriff officers. So like I said, we'll just go through this as because I haven't even seen it neither. NB. The purpose of national organs is the communication between the members and the HCCH Permanent Bureau Secretariat. They are not intended for communications with the public. Ooh, secret, secret. ID. Members of the public are kindly asked not to direct inquiries regarding a particular convention to the national organ. Questions concerning a specific convention may be directed to a central or a competent authority designated by a state for a particular convention. The details of those authorities are available on the webpage relating to the specific convention. If legal advice is required, assistance from a qualified lawyer may be necessary. So they don't want to answer any questions, these bums. Huh? The Permanent Bureau does not respond to legal queries from private persons or legal practitioners concerning the operation of the various Hague conventions. So it says, so we are a contracting party to 13 instruments. It says conventions of 5th of October 1961 on the conflicts of laws relating to the form of testamentary dispositions. Okay, so it says Convention of 5th of October 61 abolishing the requirement of legislation for foreign public documents. So they've abolished the requirement of any legislation for foreign public documents. It says Convention 15th of November 1965 on the service abroad of judicial and extrajudicial documents in civil or commercial matters. Convention of June the 1st, 1970 on the recognition of divorces and legal separations. So how it's dealing with the estates when it comes to testamentary dispositions. It looks a bit like perhaps not requiring certain public documents that you would expect to have in play in actually to make a ruling. It's no longer required, so they're making it easier, moulding it together maybe. And service abroad of judicial and extrajudicial documents on civil and commercial matters. So they've made sure that they can serve stuff in without any barriers, it would appear. European Union, you see. Can you see why we never left it? And they want you to have another do. Just keep saying no, thank you very much. And that's the end of it. But recognition of divorces and legal separations, again, essential that you've got control over this outside your nation because it's moving into no-hide. So, and of course, divorces and legal separations are very important in relation to your estate or the Sesquiv Trust, which emerged in marriage. Convention of 18th of March 1970 on the taking of evidence abroad in civil and commercial matters. Convention of the 2nd of October 73 on the recognition and enforcement of decisions relating to maintenance obligations. Now then. So, we know a lot of you out there are having problems with this kind of malarkey. DWP is the office that is in charge of what they call complaints. If your ex-missus is drawing free money as a benefit, they're going to come after you, so you pay it back to the state. Yep, because of course your father or parent, you're not father, of course you're parent, and thus your conjoined estates, even if it's common law wife, are both liable for the upkeep of the child, because of course now your wife's on the old benefits, or your ex-missus, you still have to pay. That's the job of the state, to make sure the books are balanced. You're in agreement because you're the parent, you registered your flea bag, and oft it's sold to whichever jurisdiction or ecclesiastical division you did the water splashing. Convention of the 25th of October 1980 on the civil aspects of international child abduction. So why would we need... You know, we've got laws around all this. Now, I'm guessing that to look into these would be the passage which they can do this in the background, not to the trumpet charade, child trafficking, but the trafficking going on by the state as they whisk off your flea bags for whatever reason they can get their hands on, especially now the schools are incorporated and they're putting in little specials who are just going in there and referring targeted offspring for civil service, social services to get involved in your family. That's not just schools, any busybody operation are doing this. People that come to read your meter, you don't need to read your meter because you can give it them. And if you're on a smart meter, they get it automatically. This is how they get the people in to wreck your house and report back for anything. Your schools, for many, many years, since 97, have had all your flea bags since the age of 5, doing lessons, let's say, right, we're going to do environmental today. Okay, so flea bags are well happy. Oh, right, fantastic. 5-year-old doing whatever they're told by a grown-up. Right, so let's have a look. What did you recycle this week? So now they want to know how many beer cans are being recycled, how many wine bottles are being recycled. You get the picture? And this is how they've created the data banks on you via your offspring. Yeah, it's entrapment for a start. It's a breach of data protection, is it not? And your schools are doing it. I've said before at Ofsted, and I know this stuff because I studied it. But my daughter had a childcare company for a while, and I were quite involved. And Ofsted are judging schools and other paedophile rings, not by how well they're educating your offspring, as you assume, but how well they're collecting data on the family via the little innocents of the flea bags. That's where Ofsted service an outstanding school. You need to shake yourself because they know more about you than you know about yourself. Yeah, and your offspring in them little flea bags have been very happy to hand over that information because it's been part of the education system. Yeah, it's part of the curriculum. And they have no idea. And you have no idea because the teachers are not grassing. Yeah, it doesn't matter if they're Auntie June, she's just so lovely. If she's a teacher, she's lying. She's full of shit. Yet she's making sure you don't find out. That's what they're doing. She might not be teaching sex side of it. She might not be doing the NLP programming of them. She will be, of course, she's carrying out the thing, but she might not be the master. They're covering it up. Yeah, they're no less innocent or less guilty than the real bad boys and girls that are actually happy to do that to your offspring. In many cases, they don't actually have any offspring of themselves. They hate the world, themselves, and all men. And have got out here if you've got a son in the school, because of course they're going to just project that hatred of the male onto your flea bag. And if they can get hunting down dad, so if they can get dad on something, you see, privatisation, it's not a good idea. There's no vetting, say for, is he a twisted git? Is he a twisted git? Get him employed in the schools. We're getting there. Let's have a look. Convention 1st of July 1985 on the law applicable to trusts and on their recognition. Okay? So Noah has picked it up there. He's controlling the laws are applicable to trusts and other recognition. Civil aspects of international child abduction. Recognition and enforcement of decisions relating to maintenance. Child maintenance. Yeah? Recognition of divorce and legal separations. Testamentary dispositions. Yeah? This is Noah. This is the Noah gig in the EU. So if we're seeing it there, we're seeing it in the UK. Can you see why they've no intention of letting you out of Europe? Because this shite wants to come in and take all your flea bags off you. Yep, they're already seeing it now. They've took your liberties, they've took your mind, taking your homes if you're mortgaged up to the death. Your rents are going up because the idiot landlords were stupid enough to think that buy-to-let were a great idea, because I don't think they'd ever understood that interest rates actually go up, Now in serious trouble and having to hand over their portfolios to the estate agents, who we all know are evil beyond comprehension. They want to know what colour your underpants are and how big your erection is when you get up in the morning. No hide, people. This is where it is in this statutory side of it. So, this is Convention of the 29th of May 1993 on the protection of children and cooperation in respect of inter-country adoption. Trafficking. The royal families have been all over this for what, the last 15 years in Romania. Orphanages. They've been obsessed with it. Mental health, another big gig being run by this this bunch of, or a family that calls itself royal. Yeah, it's a shit show. Inter-country adoption, people, you know. Convention of 19th of October 1996 on jurisdiction, applicable law, recognition, enforcement and cooperation in respect of parental responsibility and measures for the protection of children. Can you see? Can you see? This is the EU, folks. This is why there's more people in this nation know well we need to get out of Europe. They're flooding you. They're invading you for replacement with dumbasses because they're only interested in creating another trust to play this game. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're being invaded, you're being replaced, that's the gig. You're jumping on the juice, it's working a treat. It's working an absolute treat for these people. Yeah? So I'll come and have a look at where you lot are. But you're getting the picture, aren't you, with this? So thanks my friend asking your protocol, how much off who we're talking about. Okay, news on a psychedelic trip. Hey Tree. Clear brain fog. Right, so they're talking about naughty stuff. Okay. In the Untitled says, in the process of fertilisation, the idea is carefully nurtured under the guidance of the Holy See and safeguarded, akin to the protection offered to the Virgin Mary. Okay. So you're suggesting they've nicked her and created a lower branded idea of her. Is that what you're saying there? With baptism, the church validation is bestowed through the ritual of confirmation. Right. So, if you've not been confirmed, then they don't own your soul. Administered by your parents and observed by the church's officiating priest or vicar. Jay says, here you go. No. Oh, you're all on the bloody hallucinogens, you bad uns. Tell you lot did 90s, I'll tell you that now. Evening all, says Andy Gill. Andy, good evening. David Gregg says, hey folks, and we got the balloon. Red balloon. That 99 red balloons go by. Mupate, believe he's still at it. He's still hunting down another trip. Jay says, welcome everybody. Here we go. So Muse had a terrible weekend. I had to put my dog down. Had 2 fits on Friday night. Glad to hear you're slowly recovering. Who got 2 fits? Your dog? Yeah. Well, that's sad. Sad to hear. Have you heard this? Yeah, you're right. You're saying if you don't microchip your cat by 2024, you're going to get fined 500 quid per moggy. I say, kiss my ass, and you try and catch me cat. I haven't got a cat, of course, but that's what I'd say. Good day to you, Jace. Chris Steiger says, amalgamation. Amalgamation. I'm not sure what you're referring to there in the old China. Are we talking about the law? I would agree. It definitely is. I'm supposed to do that. I forgot. So Treen says, TV frozen, so I'm on my mobile. I'm sure there's a lead you can pull. It's like a souped up HDMI lead. You can plug it from your phone into your telly and use your phone's internet, Tree. I'm sure you can do that. Or do it Wi-Fi, but it looks like you're having a bit of problem with the Wi-Fi strength, doesn't it? So maybe look into that. Just go to one of the these little phone shops and just say to him, "This is a way you can use your mobile internet and transfer it to your telly without Wi-Fi." I'm sure there's a special HDMI lead that does that or something. I don't know. I might be talking at me posterior a bit there, but I'm sure there must be something you can do. So Sure Logic says evening. So Untitled says I'm getting the picture. So dog is on. I've not registered to check my dog. I never even took my dog to vets. I didn't get him neutered. The only animal I took to vets were a cat to get her snipped. But guess what? Because obviously I was new to cats. So I had a boy and a girl, and brother and sister. I thought I'll just get it done, and then I'm not having flea bags everywhere. Because I didn't really want flea bags everywhere. So I rang vet and I said, look, can you spade my flea bag? She said, yeah, no problem. So we arranged the booking and blah, 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 and I went in, took it in, and she said to me, she sat me down, she said, right, well, this is what I'm going to do. And she said, so I'm going to take its womb out, I'm going to take this out, I'm going to remove that, I'm going to do this. I'm like, what? I'll hate me for the rest of my life if I do that. I said, look, can we just cut its tubes and forget all the rest of it? I said, because I don't really like that idea, it sounds a bit brutal. I said, so, I'll pay you the same. I said, I'm not bothered about the cost. I said, but will you just tie its tubes up? And then she's got all the gubbins, and she still feels like a lady. And it was a bit, at first, I'm getting, look, I'm really serious. I do not. If you're saying that's the only way you can do it, I'm not doing it. I said, because that's not what I want to do to this little flea bag. So she thought about it for a minute, and she just went, do you know what? She said, I will do that. And I thought, well, thank God for that. You've been butchering flea bags all these years. They take everything out. That's just ridiculous, if you ask me. No wonder they're getting cancer. And then if you put in a chip in, it's definitely going to get cancer in it. Oh my God, moves on sperm there. Oh my God, sperm and so he's gone from hallucinogenics to sperm. What in the world goes on in your mind, Mew? Right, what is going on? I learned this week that when the sperm enters the egg gets hard. G5 makes eggs in the womb. Not that. They've sterilised the majority of those under 30. Come on, they've been sterilising them with this HPV for a long time. That's no secret. A guy in Isle of Man wrote a book about it, sent it me, excellent read. Got in a lot of trouble over there in the Isle of Man. I can't remember his name offhand. But yeah, we had a communication for a while, and he wrote a book just on that subject. This is nothing new. You're telling me that's not what they did en masse when you remember what it's all about, or before this, it was all about knocking you off, killing the creditor to bring in new ones. Replacement. It's replacement trusts. They don't care what colour you are. They don't care how thick you are. The thicker the better. That's the way it goes. So you're being replaced. It's not. They want the flesh and blood. They want to create a new trust. That's what the empire does. It collects slaves, while keeps them hidden in jingle jangle, makes them think they're amazing and fantastic. And God said. Let's go back to what Untitled said. What have they done? Created an avatar for the real idea of the Queen of Heaven. They created an avatar which which, with the kingdom side of it, the empire side of it, Holy See, Phoenician. Because, you never see anybody when they're talking about Phoenicians say, well, who are they? They'll go, who are they? And that's it. Well, it's pretty obvious who they are. They are the naval force, be both merchant and military, that way back in the midst of time were connected to an empire that was destroyed on the landmass. We've got to be talking Atlantis, haven't we? We've got to be talking Atlantis here. Or the one in the Pacific. Because by all accounts, there's been quite a few different landmass complete destructions. One in the Pacific, one in the Atlantic. So obviously, these people were the merchants and the naval forces of those collapsed empires. They could continue. Because they were on the oceans. They knew where they were going trading to. Because these disasters, even the Great Flood, when you get down to it, it wasn't the entire earth that was flooded. Not everything was affected in a destructive way by that event. So they are, that's who they are. The merchant class and the naval class of a long ago empire that were destroyed in some cataclysm. And maybe multiple empires, but always what's going to survive? It's like rats, aren't they? They're on the seas, in the little boats. They're on the little islands, the treasure islands, and there they are. They're who they are, and because they control the trade and the military might, they are the power that nations have always gone to forever for what they need. So that no wonder they've got the power they have, and the Holy See. In a big respect, a lot of the families are part of that heritage through Carthage. So what we're talking now. So the dog, we've got dog, psychedelics and sperm. So Trina's on it now. Use mobile in connection to HDMI cable to connect the TV. Right, so that might just work, Chuck. I'm sure it does, actually. £285 to get a dog castrated now. What? Well, you must fool you if you get your dog castrated. They're not dogs anymore. If you have a male dog, you want it to be feisty. You want it to be out there hunting down females. Dogs. Why people always, look what he's doing, he's bumming that dog. That's what dogs do. It's a dominance thing if it's male on male. But I've never understood that. I never. I mean, they can get a bit too excited at some point. But you just got to keep control of your dog. That's all. But they stay full of beans. They don't get fat and stupid, and just something that lies on carpet stinking. You can actually still doss with them, even right up until they're ready to knock off. So no, I don't agree with any of that one, like it. Canon law says untitled, also known as ecclesiastical law. Well, canon law they are the ecclesiastical law, and they're put into what they call a canon. So we use statutory acts as a term to describe a grouping of law. The canon is that descriptive of ecclesiastical laws, as it filters out into commerce. Because usually, the Catholic Church was against hard stone compound usury, but they charged interest. I've found it when I've looked back, way back in 700s, 800s, 900s, they were charging interest. 2.5% was and below. That's what I found. So let's not pretend that the church has been against interest. No, compound interest. That's the problem. Islam's against compound interest as well, unless it's through invasion and it's taxing you. It's worse than compound interest, isn't it? Because if you refuse to pay the tax, they'll go to war with you and enslave you. That's in the doctrine. So, and look at these people they're bringing over, man. You don't think that they're going to get activated next year when Israel kick off or do something with his temple? You can already see it kicking off now. But of course, it's Iran. that they're attacking. Iran's now just said that we're going to retaliate for what you did in Syria, blah, 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 blah. You can see it's going, it's kicking off. Saudis and Israel are doing deals, but that's going to collapse right on. That'll go up its ass in 5 minutes. Because at the core, when you get into the battle lines between Islam and Judaism, is which of their gods is the greatest deceiver. That's the gig. And I studied some stuff that were quite worrying, because if that works pans out correct, then Israel are going to be encouraged to do something stupid, thinking that it's going to work, but the ultimate deception comes in that it actually completely and utterly fails, and basically the Israelis become serfs or slaves of whatever it is. But that was just something I studied for a while. I can't remember now exactly where I got that from. But I didn't really speak about it much, because again, it's conjecture. It was somebody's writing and pulling stuff together and saying this is basically what's going on at the top. But we'll have to see. But if peace is going to be removed from the earth, as is afforded to the second horse, it's got to be in that mix. Because you upset Israel, you piss off all the Zionists, which used to be Christians, but are no longer, because they're under the ecclesiastical jurisdiction of the church away from England. It's got to be then Israel. I've got images of Wellesby. No, what's the nut job called that's running church? Wellesby, is it, or something stupid like that? I've seen him sat there with Jacob Rothschild over there in the old Israel with his cap on. No. This is Church of England, means church away from. Yeah, so Henry VIII weren't that much of in sync with Arthur, then were he? He was more in sync with, the Carthaginians. So that's all naughty stuff. Let's have a look what I'm saying. Paul says, good evening, truth over lies. Okay. Andrew Gill says, that's Morley's in Accrington. Mealis, rather. Talking about dogs, winkles, psychedelics, and spermacy. It's going downhill, isn't it, this chart? Oh, God, what can I say? Best mushrooms are found in the UK. Well, according to Welsh, the best mushrooms are from Lancashire, because that's what they said. Anyway. Truth Over Lies says, found this place through me's channel, and I found me via Laura Nina. 2 bricks does the job. Okay, well, I'm getting ahead of myself there, aren't I? Right, so I'll do untitles again, because I don't look like I finished it. Canon law, also known as ecclesiastical law, is the system of laws and legal principles made and enforced by the hierarchical authorities. Paul says, we've done that one. Untitles is such as the Pope and bishops of the Catholic Church to regulate its members and organisations. David Gregg says, 2 bricks does the job. Oh, are we talking about squashing his old, popping his little, well, didn't they used to just put elastic band on it, over top of sack, and keep tightening it up and drop off? That won't do, of course, today. It's got to be some juice, hasn't it? It's got to be some kind of juice somewhere, because somebody's got to make some money. If you're putting elastic bands on, the only person that's made any money is whoever sold you elastic band and made it first. So that's no good, is it? They can't have that. David Gray says usury. Justin Welby, that's the critter. Says truth over lies, thanks for that. Treen says, I was talking to someone via H that is on the border of Iraq and Syria a few days ago. He knows what's going on. And he has told me that many Muslims are aware. I'm going to surprise the wee hats. Yes, I know this. But that's the trap that I can see playing out as well. The way I see it is this. Everybody is being screwed over. And it's happening because of their own laziness. So whether that's law, if you're getting frustrated trying to learn the law, you're hating the law, you're hating the agents, it's because you're not doing it correctly. It's because you've been too lazy to sit there and go through what it is you need to go through in order you understand what you're doing. For instance, I didn't finish my point. So in these last 10 months, looking for this, putting things right. So I went through the jurisdictions. So you've got equity, third right claim to land, that's government. You've got common law, which is all to do with land, yeah, and it's a second right claim to land. So freehold gives you that, leasehold gives you third right, yeah. So if you own your own house, you don't own the land, you're at third right claim. You're going to be administered at equity side. If you're getting freehold and you're in common law, and you can disentangle yourself on the equity side, then you're under the king. You're under the common law. Now it's the ecclesiastical that's the power. Yeah? And we need to start to recognise. Here, on Blighty, it's been a long, long time ago, handed. I think it might have been either Charles I, Charles II, I'm not sure. Nobody after that, after Henry VIII. No, yeah. Either Charles I or Charles II or James II. One of them lost the ecclesiastical power that Henry VIII set up for himself, for the monarch. And it went to the Temple Bar. It's important that we know this. Is it not? This will be why the IRS is the global tax collector for the temple, the Temple Bar. And the ecclesiasm is coming out of the Knights Templar Church. Is that old order? So there's your ecclesiastical Protestant. That's where it's at. And we can see clearly, Church of, away from England. Yep. That's what's happening. So if you sat there going, ugh, that's what's happened. Because you weren't paying attention. So it's the same in law. If you're frustrated, you're not putting the attention into what it is you need to put the attention in to. So back to what I was saying. So I was forming a declaration, basically, pulling myself out of each jurisdiction. Equity, common, ecclesiastical. And I was putting all this together thinking, yeah, this is going to do the job. But it's just, the thing is, that was sort of the journey to come to understand that A, the jurisdictions are separate. B, they have a separate language. You can't mix it. You can't mix it up. Because straight away they know in your communication, this guy, forget it. He's dead. He's just going to take the piss. We're not listening to him. He's dead. He cannot settle that estate. Not a chance. They have to protect it. Or they put the king into dispute. They have to do that. You're still getting frustrated. Now, what I started to think were writing it out isn't actually the difficult part. It's important in that you're declaring your standing, and that has to be put in the right place. But you also as I move through this, you have to start to realise that all these people out there in the system, the state, these civil servants, their job is to administer at the equitable side to ensure the trust isn't damaged. Yeah? They can only enhance the trust. You can't damage it. You can't take from it the estate. As the estate I'm talking about. The trust is a part of. So they're dealing with the estate, protecting it at equity side. Yeah? You're going in dead. Father's, yeah, you're going in as it, you're going to be paying it. Because you're going in as trustee, the liable side. You're going on the dead ledger. Now, it's important that you start to work out what it is that what are their rules. Yeah? Because only by understanding what their rules are in relation to how they have to act in accordance to what you put forward or what situation arises. It's not that you need that grammar to put it in your declarations per se. You may want to cite one or two acts and then in the reference you could put the part of that particular act that you're actually using. Which is why I said earlier, if you're going to use parts of acts, you must just go through the whole thing to make sure that there's not another part of that act that cancels that out. That's important, because again, if you don't do that homework, they'll see he doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah? So they're only acting in accordance to what it is you put forward to them. Okay, we know they're full of shit and they're blocking at all points. And back to what we've been looking at. In my opinion, that is the data that's moulding them together, and we think we're on our own acts. Now, further investigation is required, in truth, because I've come to this call, I found it earlier in the week, I haven't had time really to go through it, and I thought, well, okay, we'll go through it together so that everybody gets to see it and you can get an idea of how I look at things as I'm going through things. So if I were to start looking through these acts now, obviously there's going to be, I'd be looking for the idea I have in my mind. I'd be looking for something that supports that in there. Either supports my right, or more importantly, is something that they have to take on board. So you will present your communication, because you're instructing them. So you've got to know what their options are in an action, so you can send them on that journey to what it is you want to manifest. Does that make sense to you? So the real important part of this, for me, and it's 10 months now in, and I'm still at it, every day of the week, it's understanding the rules that they're subject to. Because you're bringing some subject matter, they have a lot of rules of how they have to deal with that. But also in doing so, going through the stuff, you get to see what they can and what they can't do. So it's no use requiring them to do something that they just can't do. And that's where, if you're shifting out to different jurisdictions and mixing them up again, you're going to come unstuck. Now, also, looking at some of these systems that are out there, and people say, well, it doesn't work. You've also got to take into consideration that a lot of them guys, if they're not, well, they're obviously taking some for themselves, so that's what they're in it for, but they've given it to you, and you're taking it verbatim, without fully understanding certain aspects of what it is they're saying. So, for instance, you might not understand the trust situation correctly. Ergo, you're going to study this work of these guys, but you're not going to understand it correctly. So when you act with it, it won't work. It won't work because you didn't do the homework in relation to fully understanding what it is they've presented to you. And it's not because you don't understand the parts. So if he's saying blah blah blah, a bill, say you've got to go and understand, what does a bill mean? What does that mean? What is it in their terms, legal terms? You can't just run on your maps idea of what it thinks is right. You get me? Territory has to be solid before you can get the state to act in according the way you want it to, but you're getting frustrated. That comes across in your communications, folks. I've told you this. And the way I remedied that many years ago was, something happened, I'd get it all out of my system, 3 pages long, put it away. I've vented everything I wanted to say to that initial reaction to the letter or whatever it were. Then I'll go back to it day after. And I'll take out all the anger, the sarcasm, nonsense that's blatantly not necessary. Yeah? Gone. You're down to 2 pages. Put it away. Then I'm going back to it again and I'm saying, okay, where am I repeating myself? You'll be amazed how many times you repeat the same. You've made a point up here and then you keep coming back to it all the way through the thingy. It's ridiculous how many times we do that. It's because we're running on the map. Yeah? That again, I'd go back to it and I'd look for all the points where I've repeated a point. And you'll be surprised. That's where the majority of the removal of the data you've written gets shifted out. Gone. You're left with a page. You're left with a page. Whereas at beginning it with 3 pages made sense to you because it were everything you wanted to get out. you're down to a page. A solid, real, tangible and valuable data. It's a data set you can work with. And then I would go through it again. Because sometimes I found that we use a word in a sentence. And because you use that word, it then requires that you use another 4 words. So what I worked out is if you change that word to something else, you remove 4 words again. That you're not necessary, but you're getting the point across. Do you get what I'm saying? This is about learning the language and how to use it correctly. And it's why academics use posh words that you've never heard of before. And most people won't go and check it out on a dictionary. They'll think, oh, it must mean that. And then for them in the map, that's what it means every time they see it. Well, that's fine if you're writing stories because you're presenting something. But if you're trying to understand what this guy over here is saying, then it's essential you understand what he's saying, not what your map thinks. Yeah? But it's so important that to grasp. And this is what this last 10 months I've been really focused to and streamlining, because you don't need that much verbiage. Your point, how can I put it? When you know their game, their arena, you know how to communicate all the tick 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 ticks that they need to see that makes them go, ooh, 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 yeah, that's what you're after. Ooh, that's what you want. Now, if they come in to test you, this is why it's important you understand the bigger part of their rules that they have to obey. Because if they're going to test you and you don't know what they're saying, you won't have a response. Again, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. This guy can't settle the estate. You know what I mean? And that's the way it works. And if you're nearly there, they might help you. They might give you a response back that you think's flippant. But actually, if you really study what they've written, because remember, these guys are way ahead in understanding this concept about words, English, the language, how to use it. That if they think that you're trying, you're not out there copying templates that somebody else has been. And, also as well in the system, if people are throwing templates out, they know where these templates are coming from. So straight away they know you've copied it off the internet. You don't want to copy. You want to take the knowledge that something's relaying to you and move it in your own inimitable way, the way you communicate. Everybody has their own way of doing things. How we speak, how we tell a story. Like females start here and go all the way over there, off to Blackburn, Lancaster, down to London for a couple of days, spa. Then they come back and get to a point, don't they? Whereas males tend to just go duh, and girls go off the tits because they needed far more information than that to satisfy the neuroticism. I mean, of course, I'm just being facetious, girlies. I love you really. But you know what I'm saying? We're so different, males and females. And children go all the way around the houses, 25,000 miles, especially if they're telling fibs. Because they've concocted this big journey of how... Yeah. Anyway, you get what I'm saying, don't you? But it's really important that we understand that stuff, so that we understand what they have to do. Because when you understand what they have to do, then you're playing chess, aren't you? You're on the chessboard. You're not guessing, you're not shooting from him, you're not trusting him over there because he sent you a template and he looks good online. He's got all the jingle jangle, he's got 14 million subscribers, so you think he must be good. Nah, you're just filling your map. You've got to take what's important from these people and then give it your own study, and then it becomes the territory. And so you're not looking with your own map, the territory becomes your map, or the map. How could you possibly not be ready for any and every angle that may come forward? You know what I'm saying? And that's what I've been really coming to terms with in these last 10 months. And you know what? It's paid dividends. Whereas years ago, I'd be off it. No, forget that. And even sometimes I think, oh my God, I've got it. Stop. And then 3 days down the line, the journey, and more opens up. And it opens up and then negates the need for a lot of other stuff that I thought I needed. And so it's a cancelling out. It's like I say all the time, you're looking for piss easy politics. You're looking for piss easy financial solutions. Everything's simple if you know the game. Because, that's how they do it. They know it like second nature. You've got to recognise that with them. You can't blag them. And, if you're going to keep blagging them and then get cross, it's on you. You're never going to see what you need to see because you're too busy hating them. When really they're just doing the job. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not pretending for a second they're playing by the ball. They're not. But in their world, they're okay. They're still in on it because they're keeping you in joinder, keeping you as that person they're administering. You're not being heard. Yeah, and no matter how well you piss up your leg, you're going nowhere. As you know yourselves if you've been to score. You know it. You know how they play. I know how they play. That's why I don't want to ever go in one again. So there we go on that. So let's go back to this thing. What else did we have? Convention of 13th of January 2000 on the International Protection of Adults. You see, they say protection, but really, as you've learnt with this duty occur, it's power. It's reverse speak. They call it protection of adults, it means power over adults. More statutory power over the administration of an adult. Yeah? Of a child. Yeah? Adoption. Trusts. Abduction. Legal separation. Commercial matters. Can you see? This is where the sneaky little buggers are at it. This is why they're so desperate for us to go back into Europe, and why we need to keep cash, as we looked through it last week, but more importantly, we don't want to go anywhere near that bag of shit across the old channel. Look what France has done to us. Look and now you're going to see what the Dutch have done to us. Right? And I'm not talking about the people, of course, but in case of France, it is the people, because they don't like the Angleterres, do they? Enculés, as they call it sometimes. How disgusting is that? I'm offended. Anyway, it's a good job I've got my pronouns as fantastic and amazing as I would be offended. And then I'd be going crying to somebody. But of course I wouldn't. Because I'm a grown male. Now then, next. Convention of 30th of June 2005 on choice of court agreements. Ooh, interesting. 23rd November 2007 on the international recovery of child support and other forms of family maintenance. And it says has signed one instrument. So we're a contracting party to 13, but have signed one. How does that work? But get this one that they have signed. Are you ready? 2nd of October 1973, concerning the international administration of the estates of deceased persons. Deceased persons. Sesquivi Trust. Equity. Dead equity. Yeah? Is it let the dead deal with the dead or something like that? Can you see that? International administration of the estates of deceased persons. That, my friends, is no hide. Now let's have a look at its history. The origins of private international law. You get that? Private international law as a discipline can be traced back to the Renaissance, as new questions on the interaction between different legal systems arose with the expansion of trade between the northern Italian city-states, which includes Venice. However, it's not until the end of the 19th century that a group of prominent international lawyers, most notably among them Pasquale Mancini and T.M.C. Asser, you can see to the right, to the left, paved the way for states to establish a uniform system based on cooperation and mutual respect for resolving issues related to the cross-border application of laws and recognition of judgments. See, you can see, this is your League of Nations, United Nations, but more importantly in relation to us right now, it's the EU. In 1893, at the behest of T.M.C. the Dutch government convened an international conference on the regulation of a number of issues relating to civil procedure and jurisdiction. Attended by delegates from 13 states, this Hague Conference has since then become known as the first session of the Hague Conference. The first Hague Convention, the Convention on Civil Procedure, was adopted shortly after in 1894 and signed on 14th of November 1986. 1893 to 1949, initial sessions of the Hague Conference. The first 6 sessions of the Hague Conference were held between 1893 and 1928. These were international conferences organised on an ad hoc basis, with the participation of a limited number of states, varying from 13 to 22. The first decade of Hague's conference history, 1893 to 1904, was characterised by significant progress, as its first 4 sessions resulted in the adoption of no less than 6 conventions, all except one in the field of family law. Many of these old conventions have since been replaced, in whole or in part, by more modern instruments. Notice 1893-1904, before they'd established the Federal Reserve, and before they got Europe to annihilate itself in the First World War. So this were important, obviously, to getting the Fed in, and of course killing all the males in the First World War. Shoving it down the necks of Germany, France, England, Holland. But of course this is done in Holland, remember. With the outbreak of the 2 world wars, international cooperation broke down and progress in the unification of private international law came to a standstill. While the 5th and 6th Hague conferences were held in the interwar period, that would be 1925 and 1928 respectively. These did not lead to the adoption of any new conventions. And there's a picture of the Johnny-come-latelys sat there at the table. Une table, says the Frenchman. 1950s and 1970s revival and establishment of the HCCH as a permanent organisation. The end of the Second World War marked the start of a new era for the Hague Conference after a long hiatus. Its 7th session was held in 1951, resulting in the adoption of a statute, which upon its entry into force on the 15th of July 1955, would establish the Hague Conference as a permanent intergovernmental organisation, governed by its members and supported by a secretariat, the Permanent Bureau. Now bear in mind, folks, Fed's in, First World War, Second World War, Bolshevik Revolution, Israel's formed, 1950s, the big UFO scares, nuclear scares, Soviet Union, Cold War. But earlier than that, what happened? Nations went into administration. Birth certificates floated on the stock market. All that's happened with the help of this. The statute enshrined the practice of designating national organs to facilitate communications with the Permanent Bureau and other members. These would later be complemented by central authorities, the entities designated by contracting parties to coordinate national implementation of their respective convention, first introduced with the 1965 Service and 1970 Evidence Conventions. Central authorities have been incorporated into most HCCH instruments adopted since. See, this is why they had to... Ted Heath, Kissinger Associates, made sure a blackmailed Heath dragged us kicking and screaming into Europe. That's treason in relation to the monarch. It's a complete and utter breach of Magna Carta. But when you consider the second right claims to land, the baronet have been Zionised since the Civil War. Not odd, is it? It says, at its inception, the official language of the HCC was French, which remained the sole official language until 1964, when English was adopted as the second official language. Well, probably because we wouldn't have come in otherwise. You know what we're like about the frogs. When English was adopted as the second official language, this facilitated the participation of more states with a common law tradition, such as the United States, Canada, and later Australia, as the HCCH sought to build bridges between civil law and common law systems. See, they're nicking it. A bit like William and Mary did the same, instituted what were common law into the hands of the parliamentarians and statutes and acts. Have I learned so much these last few years. During the post-war period, increases in migration and trade placed pressure on traditional diplomatic and consular services, which resulted in greater attention being afforded to issues of private international law. The concepts of habitual residence and party autonomy were first introduced, becoming central features of subsequent private international law instruments. It was also during this period that the 1961 Apostille Convention, the most successful HCCH convention to date, was adopted. Apostille. In 1977, the first ever special commission on the practical operation of a HCCH convention was convened to discuss the service convention, marking the beginning of what would become the post-convention work of the HCCH, a fundamental element of its operations today. A second special commission meeting was held in 1978 to discuss the Evidence Convention. Now remember, we've been signed in by ETH into Europe by this time, and Thatcher's about to come in to incorporate, say, the civil state, which means to install fascism, privatisation. 80s and 90s. The expansion of the HCCH accelerated through the 1980s and 90s, its membership growing from 27 to 47 states. The majority of these new members were states in Eastern Europe, Latin America, Asia and the Middle East. This was a reflection of the increased interest in HCCH conventions from across the globe and was an important part of the organisation's transformation into a global intergovernmental organisation. The establishment of the 4 modern HCCH conventions relating to children is another major development of this period. The Child Abduction Convention was adopted in 1980, followed by the Adoption Convention in 1993 and the Child Protection Convention in 1996. Although the Child Support Convention and its protocol were only adopted in 2007, the preparatory work began in the 1990s with the formal review of the existing HCCH maintenance conventions at the Special Commission meetings of November 1995 and April 1999. So that's what Blair, New Labour, brought in, pulled all this together, amongst many other things. And to get rid of the opposition, they attacked the House of Lords and put their own in. And here we are today. Because the House of Lords back then used to scupper so many of the nonsense, it was unbelievable. The provision, and whether you like it or not, it did seem to come down to the bishops, the 25 bishops that were in there. The provision of post-convention services and assistance continued to grow in prominence throughout the 80s and 90s. The practice of holding special commissions on the practical operation of certain conventions expanded to the family and child protection area, with the organisations of the first 1989, second 93 and third 97 meetings of the Special Commission on the 1980 Child Abduction Convention and the first meeting 1994 of the Special Commission on the 1993 Adoption Convention. So you can see now where these family courts come into play. They're alone to themselves, these guys. Well, they're not. They're alone to this shit. 21st degree Prussian Knight, Scottish Rite, Freemasonry. No high judge or no shite judge, as it says, in Christendom. In 1998, the International Hague Network of Judges was established to promote direct judicial cooperation and communication in the effective interpretation and implementation of the Children's Conventions. So the interpretations. Very important, that term, when you're doing communications, that you interpret any words that have dual meaning. Because when you do that, you're presenting the interpretation of what you mean in that use of that word, and there's no room for or need for anybody else to judge. And then it's just going through 96. Hans van Loon appointed. Who's he? So George Dross, 17 years. He oversaw the expansion from 44 to 74 members, and also adopted the statute of the organisation. Was revised. 2005 establishment of the Regional Office for Latin America and Caribbean. 2007 revision of HCCH statute and EU membership. Now let's have a look at that. On January 1st, 2007, a revised version of the statute of the HCCH entered into force, enabling regional economic integration. Organisations to become members of the organisation shortly. On 3rd of April 2007, the Council on General Affairs and Policy of the HCCH unanimously decided to admit the European Community as its first member organisation. You get that? Registered states. Now this is an organisation. So clearly there you can see European Union is an organisation. It's a fucking company. The admission of the European Community, formerly an observer, complemented its individual member states, which continued to be HCCH members in their own right, with the entry into force of the Treaty of Lisbon. On the 1st of December 2009, the European Union replaced and succeeded the European Community as HCCH member. Do you get that? That's why we all went crazy about this treaty, because nobody read it. We read it. We read it. Nobody gave a shit. We presented it everywhere. This is what it really means. Where it's hidden. We even showed you where it was hidden. Small print. That's what it's about. That's now the time. The Treaty of Lisbon. This is why they've never took us out. This is why they've no intention of taking us out. At Crown level. At Cabinet level. Remember, it's the Cabinet that's running all this. Cabinet. Remember. Get it in your mind. The Cabinet was, in theory, nothing but a committee of the Privy Council. Yet, with the Privy Council, the Cabinet, has in reality no dealings. And thus the extraordinary... So that means, as body to bodies, no dealings. It means that all the people that are chosen for the Cabinet positions are controlled by the Privy Council. Yeah, so I'll say that again. The Cabinet was, in theory, nothing but a committee of the Privy Council. Yet... with the Privy Council, the Cabinet, has in reality no dealings, and thus the extraordinary result has taken place. The Government of England is in the hands of men whose position is legally undefined, that while the Cabinet is a word of everyday use, no lawyer can say what a Cabinet is. So there is no body-to-body dealings. It's because all the people that are chosen to become the Cabinet, whether it's Labour, Liberal, Green, UKIP, whichever bunch you are, Tory, they're all Privy Council puppets. That's what that's telling you. Get that in your mind, because that's what's going on. We'll go back to that now. Right. 2012. So get that. Treaty of Lisbon is what shifted from EU being an organisation, because a lot of member states already have the states tied into it, that everybody going to the Treaty of Lisbon puts it in completely as a community. So there's your ECR, the European Court on Human Rights. What's that allowing? Invasion, replacement, downgrade of our civilization. We are under full-blown attack, folks. The entire Western-speaking world. We are well under attack. And next year, I can tell you now, is going to be fun. Militia mind, folks. You males out there, get savvy. Start collecting data. Who's who out there in this multicoloured world that they're creating. Who is really running what, where, when? Who's the courage here, there and everywhere outside there? So all we need to know, military mind, militia mind, who's running them? Start to work it out. 2012, establishment of the Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. 2013, Christophe Bernasconi appointed Secretary General. Who's this guy? Doesn't really tell us much about him, does it? He was the architect of the Electronic Apostille Programme, which has become an integral part of the modern operation of the Apostille Convention. Electronic! Oh, there we go! Now can we see why they're moving it all online? Yeah, no hides of fantasy. It has to be in a further fiction than the one they've got going. Putting fictions in another fiction. Because the fiction you have currently, if you wake up, you have rights. It goes into no hide, there is no equity side for you whatsoever. None. 215, approval of the HCCH principles, which are formally approved its first soft law instrument, the principles on choice of law in international commercial contracts. The HCCH principles affirm party autonomy as a basis for the choice of law in international commerce contracts, and therefore strengthen legal certainty and predictability in such international transactions. And there we have a little book out there, so there's information to be known. 2018, 125th anniversary of the HCCH. They had a party. Oh, let's have a look. His Royal Highness King Wilhelm Alexander. The anniversary was also celebrated with conference hosted by the regional offices in both Buenos Aires and Hong Kong. 2019 adoption of the HCCH Judgment Convention. The most recent among the HCCH Convention just before the old book script and instruments, the Judgment Convention was adopted at the 22nd session of the HCC on 6th July 2019, negotiated by over 400 delegates from around the world. The Convention facilitates and recognition and enforcement of foreign judgments in civil or commercial matters, reducing risks and costs associated with cross-border interactions and dispute resolutions, and seeking to promote global access to justice. Now you're going to lose your party, you count your lines, and people are just going to be whisked off everywhere at the whim. If you get into European, there'll be European arrest warrants everywhere, believe me. Now, let's have a look here. Let's have a look who this Tobias geezer is. Tobias Michael Karel Asser, Dutch pronunciation, was a Dutch lawyer and scholar. In 1911 won Nobel Peace Prize together with Alfred Fried for his work in the field of private international law, and in particular for his achievements established the Hague Conference. Yep. Tobias Michael Asser was born 20th April 1838 in Amsterdam in a Jewish family. Okay? This is what's running it, folks. No hide. This is what it's all being pulled in through your Masons, through your Jesuits, Vatican II, Islam. Yeah? All pulling this in. So a professor at the University of Amsterdam. Asser co-founded the Revue de Droit Internationale de Legislation Company with John Westlake and Gustave Rollin Jacquemins. He also co-founded the Institute of Droit International. In 1873, in 1880, he became a member of the Royal Netherlands Academy of Arts and Sciences. Well, the arts would be black arts and the sciences would be the pseudo sciences of the Epstein book. A conference on private international law. Now, when anybody wins a Peace Prize, that's because they've created another arm of war. You know what I'm saying? Yeah? See, look. It's Swedish industrialist and inventor, and it's for chemistry, physics, physiology, and medicine, and literature that formulate war, which means formulating ignorance in the masses. So look, the participant states were Austria, Hungary, Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Portugal, Romania, Russia, Spain, and Switzerland. So we weren't in it at the beginning. Asser was elected the session's president and subsequently re-elected the second to fourth session, which took place in 1894, 1900, and 1904, respectively. See, they had to get that First World War out of the way before Brits have come into this. A conventions, blah, blah, blah. Divorce, guardianship. Look at this. That unify the rules of private international law in the areas of marriage, divorce, guardianship, civil procedure, effects of marriage, deprivation of civil rights. Yeah, this is, oh God, this is really how they've got all control of your estates here now, and it's moving. They're nearly there. Permanent Court of Arbitration, Hague Peace Conferences. Let's have a look at talk, see if there's any skullduggery. So it's talking about space doesn't give any indication of Jewish religious definitely background process. When it comes to minor comments, so somebody's tried to pretend they're not Jewish, but they took that out. So, because he obviously is. So, that's Wikipedia doing something good for a change. But I'll tell you what, the talk pages before, when this all kicked off, used to be 3 times the size of the actual Wikipedia page. They've definitely streamed it all down. Alright. Now what else with it? Here we go. What's that? The Hague. I can't remember why I wanted to look at it. I can't remember. But I think it was something to do with the fact that it was 1700s when it were all this was being started to put in. I can't remember what I had this up for. In all truth. Little is known of the origin of the Hague. There are no contemporary documents describing it, and later sources are often dubious. A woman called last count of the House of Holland Flourish IV already owned 2 residents in the area, but presumably purchased a 3rd court situated by the present day Hofvivje in 1229, previously owned by a woman called Melendis. Presumably Flourish the 4th intended to rebuild the court into a large castle, but he died in the tournament before anything was built. His son and successor William II lived in the court, and after he was elected King of the Romans in 1248, he promptly returned to the Hague, and our builders turned the court into a royal palace. What else were there? No, we've covered that on there. That's good. Now, just one more thing before I come and have a look at you. This is an interesting etymological insight. Queen spelled a bit odd. Okay, but it still says queen, does it not? In fact, it's probably a better pronunciation. Queen, because there is a slight A towards the name. Middle English, queenie, a woman. A law-born woman. From Old English, queenie, woman. Also, female serf, hussy, prostitute. Public woman. From Proto-Germanic, quenon. Source also of Old Saxon quan, Old High German, quena. Old Norse corner, Gothic queeno, wife, woman. Middle Dutch queenie, vain or worthless woman. From Piru, Gwen, woman. Yeah, Gwen. Compare queen. The E spelling is attested from early 15th century. Woman considered without regard to qualities or position, perhaps by contrast to the senses in queen. Hence, often slighting or abusive term for a woman. In Middle English, it could mean a harlot, an old woman or a crone, and it was in popular use 16th to 17th century in the sense of hussy, but in Scottish often with the sense of young, robust woman. The sense of effeminate homosexual was recorded by 1935 according to Partridge. This was especially in Australian slang. Cot queen, 1540s, originally apparently housewife of a cot, from cot hut, peasant's hut, see cottage, plus queen woman. Thence the transition is easy on the side to one who was the manners of a labourer's wife. Rude, ill-mannered woman, vulgar, bedlam, scold, and on other to a man who acts the housewife. The sense is rude, ill-mannered woman, a man. who busies himself with affairs which properly belong to a woman. Both are a test. That's all you cookers out there, you know, all these chefs. Both are attested from 1590s. Yeah. Gwen, or formal parts, androgynous, banshee, gynarchy, gynaiko, gynecology, gynecomastia, gyno, misogyny, polygyny, queen. It is the hypothetical source of evidence for its existence provided by Sanskrit's Janis, a woman, Gna, wife of god, of goddess, Vastan, Armenian kin, woman, Greek, Gnai, a woman, a wife, Old Church Slavonic, Xena, Old Prussian, Jenna, woman, Gaelic, bean, woman, Old English, Quen, queen, female ruler of a state, woman, wife, Gothic, Queen, a woman, wife, Quen's, queen. Queen, noun, Middle English, queen, preeminent female noble consort of a king, also female sovereign. Woman ruling in her own right, from Old English, Quen, queen, female ruler of state, woman, wife, Proto-Germanic, Queenis, source of Old Saxon Quan, wife, Old Norse, queen mother, widow of a king, who is also the mother of a reigning sovereign. Mary. I can't remember what. I'm not picking. What were I thinking when I read that first time? It made me. Because England was the main place that had queens, isn't it? So we know we got took over by the Carthaginians, the Phoenicians, after the Crusades, by without question. Did they then capture and change the meaning of the Catholic hierarchy, i.e. Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, you know, prostitute? There's some. I've not got the flash that I got when I saw it, so I've actually not done it any justice, to be fair, in relation to what I wanted to communicate. But never mind. If I get it during the week, we'll come back to it next time. So, some law you might not know about, but exceptionally important if you're going to be sending things out there, communicating with the states. Let's have a look where you guys are. You've been busy tonight, Jones. Just flying orders. Okay. Oh my word. Alright. Oh well, we're going to be around for another 6 months, I think. Whoa! You've been busy. Oh my word, yeah. There is the toll paying cost I'm in charge of, blah, 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 blah. So, oh, good grief. So we're turning into a porn channel of it. That's Mew and he's chasing the winkle, the sperm and the hallucinogenics. And he's got everybody on it. Treen included. I'll tell you who we never hear from. Debbie anymore. What happened to Debbie? Dirty Debbie. She's run off. Have we bored her stupid? Right, now we're getting somewhere. I remember that. Okay. It's turning into a porn channel. Not sex savvy, yes, no, this channel's talking dog balls, sperms and mushrooms. Yeah. That's an interesting subject matter for a Sunday evening. It's Mew's fault. You will blame Mew. And the dog's balls on Twitter. Well said, shown and explained, and the thumbs up says untitled for 3 jurisdictions. Well, that means I'll take it then. It was understandable. That's good. Thank you for that. Treen, the square with in the corner at the top of this feed is how I telecast on my iPhone. So how do we use the right paperwork, words and language? Study. So if you're dealing with a particular situation, there will be relevant acts appropriated to that study that they work to. Remember you remember we did those power videos with this so-called elite ruling bloodline member. When asked how did he get out of this, and he said, checkmate. It is. You have to show them that you know what the crack is, but more importantly, you know what they have to do. It doesn't mean to say you know everything, but within the parameters of the subject matter you're dealing with, the communication is one part, and it's important you get it correct, which is why I pop on about declarations. Forget your affidavits and all that malarkey. You're dancing to what they want you to do. Yeah, I'm giving you the way out, the easy way, rather than trying to follow their way. But you need to know their way because you need to know what they can and can't do. Otherwise, you're guessing. Your communication's going nowhere. It's better to learn it now on your own than better to try and learn it by, I'll test that and see what comes back. Because you won't learn anything. Because all they've seen is, not got a clue what they're doing, can't settle the estate, give them nothing, you know. But if they think you're nearly there, they will help you. But your all caps name is a company from Company's House. You effectively become owner of a trust. You can never be owner of anything down here. This is where you've got to understand. Do you know what the disadvantage for most people is today? Is they don't understand the Bible. Not understand it, because most people don't understand it. They've no reference to biblical law. I'll give it to you like this. Let me think. At the top is ecclesiastical. What's claimed dominion? It's claimed everything as a right, hasn't it? And calls itself the Vicar of Christ. That's the position of Pope. Yeah? So that position doesn't mean it's a Catholic position. It's a hierarchical position in the financial game being played by the Holy See. And it's claimed ownership of the world. Or a right, a claim of right to the world. First claim of right, you might say. Okay? But that's the garden. God. That's Genesis 2. Now, you see, most people who are stuck on this, they think I'm... Well, I'm sorry, but I can tell you now, if you don't get what I'm saying about the difference between Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, you will never, ever, ever come to terms with understanding the ecclesiastical. Ever. Because you're not after ownership. You can't own anything. Dominion on the land. You have a piece of land, you have dominion on it. You own it, you didn't create it. The Elohim created it. They bragged about it in Genesis 1, remember? They were well bragging about it. Heavens, earth, animals, plants. I mean, that's a brag and a half, isn't it? But then they said, yeah, well, let's make these flea bags in our image. Man, the term we use. Mind is what it really stands for. Let us make the mind in this creation in an image of ours. You get it? So that's ecclesiastical. Everything else comes out the garden and the garden God. Commands, statutes, orders. So it's not ownership ever. It's not ownership. If you want to claim to land, let's say you get it at freehold, you own the freehold, you've still only got a second right claim to land. The king commissioned by the Holy See is the big nigger on the land, holding the first right claim to that set piece of land. Yeah. Second right is his best mates. Common law. But it's a piece of land that you could... Now, if you wanted to get outside of the king, you'd have to come forward in the ecclesiastical showing you have dominion over what it is you have in your possession or marked for you. It's not ownership. Nothing's ownership. The trust situation, however, is different because that's something that's created. So something owns it. Yeah? So a trust created at birth, it was an entry. Then you got the birth certificate, which ties you to the father's name, surname, the dead trust. And that's equity. It's his third right claim to land. So you're way, way away. You're nowhere near dominion because nobody is. You're not even got a common law right to it. Even if you own your house, if you're on a leasehold piece of land, old Kingy there has power and his agent. So it's not ownership, Husky. Nonsense. How many me is there? Me. I mean, £12 cost I've been charged to buy it. But you're buying a copy, a certified copy. And what it is, it's saying this event was recorded in this book here at the registry office. At the hospital. Yeah? So ultimately, the hidden trusts will be Temple Bar, Vatican Archives, perhaps, maybe even Holy See, I don't know, maybe Switzerland in a vault, but no. Our estates today are being held by our respective central bank, and that's important to know. So we register ourselves in Company's House. Well, you wouldn't be registering yourself, would you? Be registering the trust. You have to understand that you are not the trust. Every letter that comes is addressed to the trust. It's not you. But when you respond, you're making the claim that you are. It's a trespass. You're going to get screwed. I register my name with Company's House. It has to be renewed yearly. I must be listed as a donor company. It says Andrea. Well, the whole idea of limited companies is a protection. But it's not the gig that I'm looking for. Due diligence by comprehending the legislative act on government website. I look for me, myself, nothing could find, but your link was spot on. Thank you again. This came up in my subs, if you haven't seen it. Oh, it looks like we're back to allowing links. They weren't allowing links on, I noticed, in these chats. Untitled says, start with the Births and Deaths Registration Acts of 1953. Start at the beginning. Exactly. Yes, dormant. No, you own your name. No, you've just registered the trust with Company's House. An event is held to create the person at the registry office and is sealed by the registrar under the crown. Uski says, when you register with Company's House, you get registered in England and Wales, so you get out of UK jurisdiction and legal framework. Who the hell's told you that? Where have you got that from, kid? Don't want them to retain the debt. Does it apply in Scotland? Well, Scotland might be different because you're on Roman law. Your system's bit. But as UK, no, we're all on the same. But your constitutional law is Roman law. You're up there in the old Aggie Squeezer land. I almost like Aggie Squeezers off for a bit, have I? Anyway. The Empire destroyed the official in Kenya before they handed it over. The same people were placed in power. So they've destroyed the records in Kenya, is that what you're saying? That's pretty... Oh, that'll work. David says the EU and the USA have imported more gas and oil from Russia. Yeah, I know. Suppose the ban is also being imported. Oh, no, it's a nonsense, this Russian versus garbage. In fact, in the last couple of months, Russia's given more gas to Europe than it gave last November and December. And now they're talking about another grain deal again. But through Russia, China and all the BRICS nations are being dragged into the same shindig under this no-hide system. States of emergency never ended. Yep, that's correct. Andrew says, yeah, okay. He's talking to Husky. Your person with company have bought a name and registered it, although it's not even giving you a legal name at funding.org. I've had my many distractions. You see, that's the thing. There's so many distractions that we have as well. It's very difficult to actually put the effort in that's required. I'm lucky sometimes. But then it is difficult. You know, I have to live like a fucking pauper so I can have the time to put in. Because if I'm not, I don't have the time. You just can't do it. No, but and if you have kids, it's 10 times harder. You know, you're constantly on call. You can't focus. Coming out with all the company stuff has proven to have no power. Has resulted in being sectioned. If just set up in 2018, but it's dormant, so that will still stand. Well, it should do. I'm going to look at his wealth copy. Andrew, I'm Hassan from the Truth Talk group. Nice to see you here. Hello, San. Why you call yourself Husky? Okay. Let's trust nothing is being sold here. It's for consideration. It's proving evidence to persons fixing it is what it is. Everyone has a story. Now it's time to be present, and the past is past. There will be hurdles on the way, and it's up to you and each individual to handle their own affairs. Exactly, you cannot do it as a group. You can investigate what you need to investigate as a group, but ultimately, when you're communicating to settle the estate, there will be protocols that you will have to use, but you can't all start writing it like a template. Automation, what autonomans, what? No, you've got to. This is you moving to become the settler of your estate, not you and your best mate, Deadpool. And once you've done that, then you can start working with the people that have achieved that, discharging each other's debts, etc., etc. Because I had a thought today, but we'll not get into that yet. We'll do that another time when we have a bit more grammar for you. I saw something today where they were saying that every book that we have ever read is full of misinformation for the last 200 years, and I would go with that. We haven't said Virgin Mary versus Maria Magdalene. Well, we are being prostituted under this system, aren't we? There's something going on. There's something in that a mimic. They mimic the original Catholic theology, I think, and like they do, they mimic everything. The garden is a mimic of the creation. Are you on Facebook? Trine, your birth certificate is not even yours. It's copyright. The crown belongs to the crown. Exactly. You're trespassing when you walk around. Oh, me. Yes, miss. You're at school. That's why they programmed it. Yeah, Johnny Lipstick. Yes, miss. I'm here. Johnny Lipstick's arrived. Do you remember Johnny Lipstick? I know he's getting on. Yeah, but I gotta put on here on Facebook. To show them what the crack is by acknowledging who you are, and who you are not by using the right wording and by comprehending the legislative acts to use as references. Yes, because that's their rule book. You need to also, so it's playing chess. You need to know where they can and can't go on the board before you communicate, because your communication is going to checkmate all the moves. Yeah? You've really got to get this map undone. It's the map that's the problem. Somebody put something on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and it were every word were done in a specific way, but it weren't the right letters, but in different ways, and you could still read it as though it were in perfect order. That's the trickery. Well, let's say it's a skill of the map, but that skill turns into, they're manipulating that ability that the map has to just understand. Do you get what I'm saying? If I find it on Facebook, I'm going to put it up on my faceache, because it's just so, it's proof that your map is its own little gig. And the degree to which it's not in sync with the territory is the degree to which your life's fucked. Unless you've joined these secret societies, because they're groups set up to fit your map. Not real, not the territory. It's the fake up, it's the fake, but it's set specifically. Because it knows how everybody's maps are operating, everybody's slightly differences, but they can bag you. As soon as they have your sweet spot, There's a secret society for you. There's a business for you. There's an association of people to make you feel... You know what I'm saying? That's where the manipulation is, the wizardry. With the language. Yeah, they know you're following your map. Whereas they're on the territory. So you don't see the blank. There you go. I don't know. Truth to case. I don't know what that is. What is it? I own nothing, but I don't give a shit. Good idea. That's probably the best attitude, really. Your own funeral update. Yep. If 18 years old, how to return birth certificate. Why would you want to return the token that you need to play on the Monopoly board? By golly. You're out of the game. As I say to everybody that comes to me and goes, I've sent it off and I'm fucked. I say, well, just apply for a new one. Buy another. It's a copy, remember. A certified copy saying this happened. That's all it is. It's tons of them. They can come out of their arse all day. It's not the end of the world. Yes, wrong viewed law. 18 years, how do I blah, blah. I agree with the map. Analogy. It's the best gig going, and Adam gave us that. So, fair play to Adam. No, it's not your birth certificate. But your interest in it lies in the fact that you are in possession of that certified copy, which is a security. That is your interest, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, I hope you have a good week. Asking for a nephew, says Husky. You bad. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have one hell of a good week with this beautiful weather that we're about to have. Maybe we'll get a good old long autumn, which we could do because we've had 2 months of piss. Because of St. Swithin's Day. Nothing to do with climate change. St. Swithin's Day has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it still holds true when it pisses down on the 15th of July. It's going to piss down, or thereabouts, for 40 days. So, folks, hope you have a good one. Thanks for joining me. And thanks for taking part. And I hope it's been an interesting gig. I'm quite looking forward to watching it myself to see if I missed anything there. And before we get stuck in and start to understand exactly what it is that all that malarkey is about. And so I will say, till the next time.
electronic engineering.